The plane was quiet, filled with the soft hum of engines and passengers settling into their seats. A teenage boy, no older than 17, sat by the window, quietly looking out at the clouds. He wasn't dressed in anything fancy, just jeans, a plain hoodie, and a worn-out backpack tucked between his legs. He was alone. His mother had hugged him tightly at the airport before he left his grandmother's house. Now he was heading home. A few rows ahead, a well-dressed man sat beside. His wife. She was pregnant, very pregnant. Her hands gently rested on her round belly. She looked tired but peaceful. The man looked important, always checking his watch and answering short messages on a tablet. The flight attendants were polite with them. Everyone could tell they were rich. For a while the flight was smooth. People ordered drinks, some read books, and the teenager leaned back, half asleep. Then came the first bump. The plane shook slightly. People laughed nervously, thinking it was normal, but then came a second jolt, harder this time. The lights flickered for a moment. A few passengers gasped. The seatbelt sign came on with a beep. Suddenly, a loud cry broke the uneasy silence. It came from the pregnant woman. She clutched her belly, her face tight with pain. Her husband panicked, calling for help. Flight attendants rushed over, asking what was wrong. The woman couldn't speak, only gasped and pointed to her stomach. Her water had broken. People nearby stood up in alarm. Some backed away. The flight crew spoke into radios, looking for any doctor or nurse on board. But no one responded. The crew looked helpless. The teenager watched, heart pounding. He had learned about childbirth in a health class just last semester. He had practiced simple breathing support and how to calm a person in distress. He didn't think he'd ever need it, but now it was real. He stood up. "I can help," he said softly, stepping into the aisle. The crew hesitated, surprised. "Are you a doctor?" He shook his head. "No. But I know some first aid, please." Something in his voice, steady and calm, made them let him through. He crouched beside the woman, keeping his voice low and kind. "Ma'am, you're going to be okay. Just breathe with me, all right?" She looked at him with fear in her eyes, but she nodded. He asked for clean towels, water, and pillows. The attendants scrambled to get what they could. He helped adjust her seat so she could lie flat across the row. He held her hand, breathing slowly with her, whispering, "You're doing great." Just like that. The husband watched in shock. This young boy, a stranger, was doing what he couldn't. His hands shook. He tried to help, but his voice broke every time he spoke. The teenager looked up at him once and said gently, "Talk to her. Tell her she's strong. She needs you too." The man nodded and knelt beside his wife, tears forming in his eyes. The plane hit more turbulence. Passengers clutched their seats. One woman fainted, but the teenager didn't move. His focus was on the woman, helping her stay calm, helping her breathe, keeping her safe. After what felt like forever, the woman's breathing eased. The worst wave of pain had passed. The baby wasn't coming just yet, but her body had reacted to the stress. The teenager had helped her get through the danger. Then, the captain's voice came on. "We've made an emergency request to land at the nearest airport. Medics will be waiting." When the plane touched down, it was quiet. No applause, no cheers, just a deep silence of relief. Paramedics boarded quickly and took the woman away on a stretcher. Her husband followed close behind, still in shock. Before he left, he turned back. The teenager was sitting quietly again in his seat, looking down, hands shaking just a little now. The rich man walked back to him. He didn't know what to say. He just placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Thank you," he whispered. "You saved my family." The boy gave a small nod. "She's strong. She's gonna be fine." The man wanted to give him something, money, anything, but the teenager shook his head gently. "I didn't do it for that." The flight crew and nearby passengers watched in silence, their hearts heavy. No one forgot what they saw that day. Not the pain, not the fear, and certainly not the courage of one quiet boy who stood up when no one else could. And he never imagined that this simple act of kindness, this one moment at 30,000 feet, would change his life forever. The airport was busy, but the moment the plane landed, everything felt still for him. The teenager stepped off slowly, pulling his old backpack over one shoulder. People gave him small glances, some with quiet nods of respect. No one said anything out loud, but they had all seen what he did. And it stayed with them. Outside the arrival gates, he sat on a bench, scrolling through his cracked phone to text his mother that he had landed safely. She had no idea what had just happened in the sky. He thought about telling her, but how? Could he explain it in a message? Instead, he just wrote, "I'm back, be home soon." He sat there quietly, watching people reunite with families, friends hugging, laughter, kids running around. He had no one waiting for him, but that was normal. He was used to doing things alone. His mom worked long hours, sometimes double shifts, trying to keep food on the table. There wasn't time for airport greetings or fancy welcome signs. As he stood to head for the bus stop, he heard someone calling behind him. "Excuse me." "Young man," he turned. It was the rich man from the plane, the one whose wife he had helped. But now, he looked different. His expensive coat was wrinkled. His eyes were red, like he hadn't slept. And in his arms was a small bundle of clothes and documents, shaking slightly in the cool air. He walked quickly toward the teen and stopped in front of him. "I've been looking for you," he said breathlessly. "You just left. You didn't even wait." "I didn't think you'd need me anymore," the boy said quietly. The man shook his head. "We needed you more than you know." He paused. His voice caught as he continued. "The doctors said if you hadn't stayed calm, if you hadn't helped her breathe, we might have lost the baby, or worse." The boy looked away, unsure how to answer. The man pulled something from his coat pocket, a checkbook. Without hesitation, he opened it and scribbled a number. "Please," he said, holding it out. "Take this. I don't know how else to thank you." The boy glanced at it once, then took a step back. "I don't want money," he said. "I didn't do it for money." The man looked stunned. "Then what do you want? A reward? A job? A favor? You could have anything." "I own 3 companies. Say the word." The boy was quiet. His lips pressed together, unsure if he should say it. Then he finally spoke. "My mom's been trying to find a job for a long time," he said slowly. "She cleans houses, she takes care of sick people, she's good. She works hard, but she never gets called back. People look at where we live and think we're nothing." The man was listening, now really listening. "If you really want to help," the boy added, "could you just give her a chance? Just one." There was a long silence between them. The man lowered the checkbook. His eyes were wide, filled with something deeper than surprise. "You saved my family. And all you want is a job for your mom?" The boy nodded once. The man reached out and gently placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "You're not just brave," he said softly. "You're better than most grown men I've ever met." He asked for his mom's number, scribbled it into his phone, and promised to follow up. Then he handed the boy his card. "My assistant will call you tomorrow. Tell her I said to do anything you need." The boy held the card, staring at the expensive gold letters printed on it. It didn't even feel real. Before the man left, turned back one more time. "We haven't decided on a name yet," he said, "but maybe we just found the right one." The boy blinked, confused. But the man gave him a soft smile, then walked away. The teenager watched as the rich man disappeared into the crowd, still holding onto that folded piece of hope in his hand. He didn't know what would happen next. He didn't expect anything. He didn't even believe the man would really call. But deep down, something told him this story wasn't over yet. The next morning felt like any other day. The teen woke up in his small bedroom, a thin blanket over him, cold air creeping through the cracked window. The walls were plain, the paint chipped, and the sound of his mom moving around in the kitchen was the only thing that made the space feel alive. She was already dressed for work-worn jeans, a faded sweater, and her cleaning gloves in her pocket. She smiled at her son like she always did, even when she was tired. "You're home," she said gently. "I missed you." "I missed you too," he replied, pouring himself some cereal. Neither of them spoke much during breakfast. There wasn't time. She had to leave for her cleaning job at a place across town. It barely paid enough, but she couldn't afford to skip a day. Just as she was about to leave, the boy remembered the business card in his hoodie. He pulled it out and stared at the shiny gold letters. For a moment, he wondered if it was all a dream, but it was real. The name, the company, the number, it was all there. He handed the card to his mom. "What's this?" she asked. "I think someone might call you today," he said, trying to sound casual. She looked at him, confused. "Why? Who?" He hesitated, then told her everything about the flight, the pregnant woman, the rich man, the offer. She stood, silently holding the card. Her eyes were wide, and her hands trembled just a little. "You did all that?" she whispered. He nodded. "I just helped, that's all." She blinked back tears but didn't say anything more. Just pulled him in and hugged him tight. Later that day, while she was mopping the hallway of an apartment building, her phone rang. She almost didn't answer. It was an unknown number, but something made her pick up. "Hello?" she said carefully. A professional-sounding woman on the other end spoke. "Good morning. I'm calling on behalf of the Holloway Group. Mr. Holloway asked me to reach out. He personally recommended you for a position we have open." The woman's voice was calm and polite, but the boy's mother stood frozen in the hallway. She wasn't sure she'd heard right, he said. "What?" she asked, unsure. "We'd like to schedule you for an interview tomorrow. Executive assistant to one of our regional directors. It comes with full benefits, a good salary, and training support. Would you be available?" The mop dropped from her hands. She couldn't speak. Tears filled her eyes as she stared at the phone like it was magic. "Yes," she finally said. "Yes, I'm available." That evening, she came home in silence, holding the printed details of the job interview. Her son looked up from the small couch. Waiting, she sat beside him and handed him the paper. "They really called," she said, in a whisper. "And it's not a cleaning job, it's an office." "A real job," he smiled. "I told you they would." She turned toward him, her voice shaking. "Why didn't you ask for anything for yourself?" He shrugged. "You've done everything for me. It was your turn." The next day, she wore her best outfit, neatly ironed pants and a blouse they'd kept for important moments. Her son brushed the dust off her shoes and wished her luck at the door. Hours later, she came back, speechless. "They hired me," she said quietly, as if saying it too loud would break the spell. "They said Mr. Holloway already approved everything. They just wanted to meet me." Her son grinned, his chest full of pride, though he didn't say much. That night, they didn't have much food in the kitchen, but it still felt like the best meal they'd ever shared. As they ate together, she held his hand and said, "You changed our lives." But he just smiled and answered, "I didn't do anything big. I just stood up when someone needed help." Neither of them knew yet that the story was about to grow even bigger and much more public. A few days passed quietly. The boy returned to school, keeping his head low like he always did. Most people didn't know what had happened. He didn't bring it up. He never liked attention. For him, helping that woman on the plane wasn't something to brag about. It was just the right thing to do. But the world had other plans. It started with a single post online. One of the passengers from the flight had taken a photo not of the emergency, but of the moment the teenage boy comforted the pregnant woman with calm hands and steady eyes. She wrote about what she saw, how a young boy stood up when others froze, how he saved a life at 30,000 feet. The post spread fast. Within a day, it had thousands of likes. Then it hit the news. Teen hero saves pregnant woman on flight, asks only for a job for his mother. He wanted no reward, just a chance for his mom. Soon, cameras started showing up near the boy's school. Reporters waited outside his apartment. A few even knocked on the door, asking for interviews, but he and his mom said no to all of them. They weren't looking for fame. They just wanted to live peacefully. Still one day, something unexpected happened. A black car pulled up outside their apartment building. A familiar face stepped out, Mr. Holloway. But this time, he wasn't in a suit. He wore a simple sweater and jeans, and his face looked different, softer, more human. The boy opened the door. Surprised. "I hope it's okay I stopped by," the man said kindly. "We have something for you." Behind him, a woman stepped forward. She was holding a small baby wrapped in a blue blanket. Her smile was tired but warm. It was the same woman from the plane, the one he had helped. She walked up to him slowly and said, "I wanted to see you. And thank you in person." The boy stepped back, unsure. He didn't know what to say. He had never held a baby before. And now here was a newborn looking up at him with tiny eyes. "We named him after you," she said gently. "Because without you, he wouldn't be here." His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. He just looked down at the baby, stunned, trying to make sense of it all. I don't know what to say," he whispered. "You don't have to say anything," she said. "Just know we'll never forget what you did." They sat together for a while inside the apartment. The couple asked about his school, his dreams, what he wanted to do when he grew up. He didn't have a clear answer. He never thought too far ahead. "Whatever it is," the man said, "you'll be great at it." As they left, the woman hugged him gently, her eyes full of emotion. "Thank you," she whispered again. But that wasn't the end. The next morning, the boy's school principal called him into the office. Waiting inside was a representative from the Holloway Foundation. They had something to announce. "We've decided to offer you a full scholarship," the woman said with a smile. "College, housing, books, everything covered. Wherever you want to go." The boy was speechless. His eyes dropped to the floor. "And that's not all," she continued. "In your name, we're launching a new youth training program, free first aid and emergency response classes for schools across the country." The room was silent for a few seconds. Then the boy finally looked up. "You don't have to do all this," he said quietly. The woman smiled. "No, we want to." Later that week, the news spread even wider. Videos of his story filled social media. People from different parts of the world left comments, calling him a hero, an inspiration, a role model. Letters and small gifts started arriving at his school. Some wrote how his story gave them hope. Others said they signed up for first aid classes because of him. His mom kept every letter in a box. She cried the first time she read them. "You didn't just save a baby," she said one night as they sat on the couch. "You reminded people that kindness still exists." The boy looked out the window at the night sky. "I didn't expect any of this," he said softly. His mom smiled. "That's what makes it special. You did it from the heart." And even though his name was now known by many, the boy stayed the same, quiet, humble, and always ready to help when someone needed him. Months passed, and life slowly found a new rhythm. The boy still walked the same cracked sidewalk to school every morning. He still wore the same backpack, still sat in the same desk in the back of the classroom. But now people looked at him differently. Teachers smiled with pride. Students nodded with quiet respect. Even the janitor gave him a thumbs up every now and then. But he hadn't changed. He still helped carry books for his classmates. He still offered his lunch to someone who forgot theirs. And when the school nurse asked for volunteers to help with A basic health workshop. He was the first to raise his hand. At home, his mother's new job brought in steady income. For the first time in years, their fridge stayed full. Bills were paid on time. She even started saving a little each month. She would come home smiling, telling stories about her coworkers and how she finally felt respected. One evening, she came into the living room holding an envelope. "This came in the mail today," she said, handing it to her son. He opened it. Slowly, inside was an invitation, his name printed at the top in bold letters. It was for an awards ceremony in the city. The Holloway Foundation was honoring young leaders who made a difference. His first reaction was to shake his head. "I don't need an award," he said softly, but his mother just smiled. "It's not just for you," she replied. "It's for what you represent." That weekend, they took the bus together to the city. He wore a borrowed suit, slightly too big at the shoulders, and she wore a simple blue dress she had found on sale. They didn't say much during the ride, but both of them knew this day was special. The event hall was filled with people, community leaders, students, families, and guests from all over. Big screens played clips from news reports, and one of them showed a photo of the boy gently helping the pregnant woman on the plane. The crowd clapped as his name was announced. He walked onto the stage quietly, not used to bright lights or microphones. A host handed him a glass plaque with his name etched on it. The room fell silent as he stood in front of the mic. He cleared his throat. "I didn't save anyone to get famous," he said slowly. "I just saw someone who needed help. That's it." The audience leaned in, hanging on every word. "I didn't expect anything in return. I only asked for one thing, a job for my mom, because she's the real hero in my life." His mother, sitting in the front row, covered her mouth, trying not to cry. "I guess what I learned," he continued, "is that one moment of courage can grow into something big. Not just for you, but for others too." Applause filled the room, long and loud. Not the kind of clapping people do out of politeness, but the kind that comes from deep respect. After the ceremony, many people came to shake his hand. One teacher from another city said, "Because of you, we started first aid training in our school." A nurse said, "You reminded me why I chose my job." But the boy didn't think of himself as special. He thought of the baby whose tiny hands had once curled around his finger. He thought of his mom's smile when she came home from work. He thought of that moment in the sky when everything could have gone wrong, but didn't. Single quotes T. Later that night, as they rode the bus home, he leaned his head against the window and watched the city lights blur past. His mother looked at him and said, "You gave us a better life. And you didn't ask for anything for yourself." He looked at her and said, "I asked for something that mattered." She nodded slowly, "Yes, you did." And that's how the story ended, not with fame or fortune, but with something far greater. With a mother who finally had a chance. With a boy who asked for nothing but gave everything. With a new baby in the world, named after the one who made sure he'd survive. And with a reminder that even at 30,000 feet, kindness still flies higher than anything else.